On March 1st, 2018, through an open letter to the fans, the late owner of the Senators, Eugene Melnyk, announced that the team would be entering a rebuild. After losing in heartbreaking fashion to the Penguins in the conference finals that last spring, they followed up that successful playoff run with a considerably less successful 30th place finish the next year. One thing was right, they need a rebuild. But looking back with hindsight a whole 7 seasons later, did the Senators fail Melnyk's rebuild? Well, the short answer is yes. And to prove it, let's take another look at another comment from Melnyk on the rebuild. In February 2019, while hosting an event for sponsors and staff, Melnyk stated that the Senators will be all in for a 5-year run of unparalleled success, where the team plans to spend close to the NHL salary cap every season from 2021 to 2025. Now, we got one thing correct. In 2023 and 2024, they did spend relatively close to the cap limit, but each year they had big issues in terms of where that cap money was going. Let's look back on the last 3 years and see how this time of unparalleled success went. In 2021-22, they spent $71.5 million, which is quite below the cap. They also had about $6 million locked up in buyouts, buried contracts, and retained salary. The lack of spending was very apparent in terms of their quality of play. This, combined with having a below-average offense and defense, saw them come in at 26th place on the NHL standings. They addressed their goal-scoring issues in the next offseason, signing Giroux and DeBrincat to a 3-year and a 1-year deal respectively. They also re-signed Josh Norris and Anton Forsberg, and they extended Tim Stützle, but that won't kick in until 23-24. They looked poised to make some ground on their 26th finish last year. They did improve, but not by much, going up to 21st place in 2022-23. They met their goal in improving goal scoring, bumping up from 28th in goals for to 20th. They saw slight improvement in team defense too, going from 26th in goals against last season to 20th. These improvements were a good sign, especially since that they still had money wrapped up in other areas, which were going to come off the books soon. They had $10 million wrapped up in buyouts, buried contracts, and retained salary, $5 million of which were going to come off the books the next year. The 2022-23 season saw the Senators spend over $79 million, $3 million off the cap. This season showed the Senators' willingness to spend, but with DeBrincat, a guy they were going to rely on heavily, having a relatively underwhelming season, they did not perform to their own expectations. Without missing one of their top young players though in Josh Norris, the Senators could have made some noise in the wildcard race that season. All of this set up the Senators for this year. With DeBrincat off of his 1-year deal, they went out and got Vladimir Tarasenko on another 1-year deal for $4 million less to replace DeBrincat. They also got Chychrun from Arizona via trade at the end of the 2022-23 season, and signed goaltender Joonas Korpisalo to back up Forsberg. At this point in the season, they are at a cap hit of over $83 million, and have again seen great strides in the team goal scoring, jumping up to 14th in goals for in the league. Their willingness to spend was shown pretty heavily in the offseason, but oh god, nothing could have prepared them for the collapse in goaltending. For the last 2 seasons, I didn't mention the level of goaltending they got, as it was a relative non-factor, with them getting relatively average goaltending in the last few years. But the collapse in net absolutely sunk the team to 28th place in the standings so far. As of this recording, Forsberg has an .892 save percentage and Korpisalo has an .887. Going into the season, even if they got the same goaltending in his last 2 years, average play, they had a real chance of challenging for the wild card. But the lack of solid goaltending completely took out any hopes of that. This was a massive letdown, as the Sens saw a leap in depth production, and all their big players were playing at an acceptable rate in relation to their contract. So we covered the meat of it. The Senators have greatly disappointed their fans by failing their rebuild. But with a few moves, they can salvage the time they have left with the core they've built. First, They need to dump Korpisalo's contract, and hope that a rebuilding team can take him on as a reclamation project, or under the idea that he'll regress to the mean. While doing this, they may have to eat some salary or give up picks. They need to pray that Forsberg can at least be a viable backup to a starter. This will be the hardest thing for them to pull off, because there are few teams who will be able to eat Korpisalo's $4 million over 5 years. They could target Pittsburgh or Washington as trade suitors, as both teams seem to be entering rebuilds themselves. Then they need to go out and find themselves a decent goalie in free agency. Laurent Brossoit or an Alex Nedeljkovic are two great options for them, as both their teams are unlikely to re-sign them. The Jets are unlikely to re-sign Brossoit because he is viewed as Hellbuck's backup, and Pittsburgh likely won't re-sign Nedeljkovic, as they are soon going to be entering a rebuild, and they won't necessarily need a good goaltender. They should also look to shore up their depth scoring, and adding a guy like David Perron or Max Domi could greatly assist them in that. They have a great forward core in Stützle, Batherson, Tkachuk, Norris, and Giroux, so if they can find one or two guys that can handle playing with the core, that will greatly improve their offensive production. Their defensive line is full of notable guys, with the defensive core consisting of Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, and Jacob Chikrin. The defense is where they'll need the least amount of work. They most likely need to just grab one or two possible second or third pairing D-men. Two that would be great fits would be Kevin Shattenkirk and or Zach Bogosian. Both players will come cheap, and they have some great Stanley Cup experience which can help guide a young core. These changes won't cause rousing postseason success, but can definitely push a team into a great position to take a run at a wild card and would greatly improve on their incredibly lackluster season this year. The Senators have the pieces of a great hockey team. Now it's just about filling in the gaps. The job isn't mine though. It all rests on Steve Staios, their GM, on whether they quickly turn a team around or not. And as a Leafs fan myself, I hope they do. I'd love to see another Leafs vs Senators playoff series. That's all I have for you today though, so thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed, and comment down below if you think the Senators will turn it around or not. Oh, and check out my latest video on Sidney Crosby. See you later.